July is the month that exposes every mistake you made with your hydrangeas back in spring. The plant that came out of winter full of promise, leafing out lush and green, maybe loaded with fat buds, is now doing one of a few troubling things. It's wilting dramatically in the afternoon heat, looking like it's collapsing right in front of you. Its big blooms are browning at the edges and flopping over. Or, worst of all, it grew into a healthy green bush and never flowered at all, and you have no idea why. And most gardeners respond to these symptoms the exact same way. They water more. They reach for fertilizer. They grab the pruning shears to clean it up. And here's the hard truth. For at least one of those symptoms, every single one of those responses is wrong. And one of them, done right now in July, will guarantee your hydrangea gives you no flowers at all next year. July hydrangea care is not about pushing growth. It is about protection. Protection from heat, protection from your own good intentions, and protection from the mistakes that feel like help while they quietly sabotage the plant. Today I'm giving you exactly what your hydrangea needs in July, exactly what it does not need, and the one mistake most gardeners make this month that costs them an entire year of blooms. Before we start, drop your US state or your USDA zone in the comments right now. Hydrangea care in July looks completely different in Zone 4 than it does in Zone 8, and I want to make sure everything I tell you actually applies where you're growing. I read every single one. Let's go. Number 1, water deeply at the roots and stop watering the leaves. Hydrangeas have thirsty, shallow root systems, and the name itself comes from the word for water. But here's what almost nobody understands. They need consistent, deep moisture down at the root zone, not a daily sprinkle that wets the top inch and evaporates before it ever reaches the roots. In July heat, that shallow surface water is gone within hours. The roots never get what they need, and the plant responds with the exact symptoms most gardeners blame on something else: browning leaf tips, afternoon wilting, and fading blooms. The fix is a long, slow, deep soak 2 or 3 times a week, delivered in the cool of the morning rather than a light daily splash. And check the soil the right way. Push your finger 3 to 4 inches down near the base. If it's dry down there, your hydrangea is already stressed, even if the surface looks damp. A useful baseline for most zones is about 1 inch of water a week, delivered in those 2 or 3 deep sessions. But 3 situations need more. Hydrangeas planted under trees, where roots fight for every drop, those under a roof overhang where rain never reaches, and any hydrangea in a pot, where the limited soil dries out completely between waterings. A container hydrangea in July heat may genuinely need water every single day, sometimes twice on the hottest days, but even then, finger check the soil first. Now, here's the critical part. Aim the water at the soil, never the foliage, and never in the evening. Water sitting on hydrangea leaves overnight is exactly what leaf spot disease and powdery mildew need to take hold. Morning water on the leaves dries off and is acceptable. Evening water on the leaves is a disease invitation. Aim at the roots every single time. Tell me in the comments right now, is your hydrangea wilting, browning, or refusing to bloom? Drop your state and describe what you're seeing. Number 2, before you do anything else, check your sun and shade situation. The most common hydrangea problem in July is not disease, and it is not pests. It is sun scorch, and it's being misdiagnosed as a water problem in gardens all over the country right now, because the symptoms look similar and watering more feels logical. Scorched hydrangea leaves show bleached, papery brown patches on the parts most exposed to hot afternoon sun, and the blooms fade and brown far faster than they should. And here's what most gardening content never explains. The shade your hydrangea had in May is not the shade it has in July. As the sun climbs higher and shifts through summer, a spot that got gentle morning light in spring can be getting blasted by direct afternoon sun by the 4th of July, with nothing in your garden having physically moved. A hydrangea that was perfectly placed in April can be in the wrong place by midsummer. Most hydrangeas want morning sun and afternoon shade, and the window that decides whether a location works or fails is between noon and 4 in the afternoon. And know that not all hydrangeas scorch equally. The big mophead and big leaf types are the most sensitive. Hot afternoon sun bleaches their leaves and browns their blooms fast. The cone-shaped panicle types like limelight are the toughest and can actually take quite a bit of sun, especially in cooler northern zones. So in zone 4 or 5, your panicle hydrangea may be perfectly happy in more sun, while in zone 7, 8, or 9, even the tough ones want relief from that brutal afternoon heat. Match the plant to the light it's actually getting. If yours is showing scorch, go stand next to it in that window and see exactly how much direct sun it's taking. If it's baking, that's your answer. And the long-term fix is to move it in the fall to a kinder spot. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. This channel puts out real zone-specific gardening content every single week, and the information in this one video alone prevents plant losses most gardeners spend years trying to understand. It's free and it takes 2 seconds. Do it now. Number 3, refresh your mulch, but never pile it against the base of the plant. The mulch you lay down in spring has been decomposing and compressing for months, and July is when it needs refreshing. Keep 2 to 4 inches of organic mulch, shredded bark, shredded leaves, or leaf mold around every hydrangea, and it does 3 jobs at once in the July heat. It keeps the root zone significantly cooler than the air above it. It holds moisture in the soil between waterings, so the plant isn't fighting to stay hydrated all day and your water goes further. And it evens out the soil temperature swings that stress hydrangea roots during the hottest weeks of summer. But here's the mistake that costs people healthy plants. Mulch mounted up against the woody base and crown of the plant traps constant moisture right where the stems meet the soil, and that's exactly where rot sets in. Pull the mulch back and leave a clear gap, 2 or 3 inches of breathing room, around the base of the stems. Mulch everywhere around the plant, but keep the crown itself dry and open to the air. Here's why this matters more than it sounds. When the base of the plant stays wet and smothered under mulch through a hot, humid July, rot can set in at the crown and quietly work down into the roots before you ever see a single symptom above ground. By the time the plant starts collapsing in late summer, the damage has already been done for weeks. A simple 2-inch gap of open air around the base is all it takes to prevent it entirely. One of the easiest, highest payoff moves in your whole July routine. Hit the like button right now if this is already saving you from a mistake. Every like tells YouTube to show this to another gardener who's about to lose a plant this summer. 1 tap. Number 4, and this is the big one, do not prune your hydrangea right now. This is the mistake that silently destroys next year's flowers, and it comes down to one question almost nobody knows to ask. When does your hydrangea form its flower buds? Because the classic big mophead hydrangeas, the blue and pink ones, and the oak leaf types, do something that catches everyone off guard. They form next year's flower buds in the late summer of this year, right now, in July and August, on the very same stems you're looking at. Gardeners call this blooming on old wood. So if you go out this month and cut those stems back to tidy the plant up, you're cutting off next year's flowers with your own hands. The plant grows back lush and green, and it doesn't bloom, and you never understand why. This is the number 1 reason a healthy hydrangea fails to flower. It is not disease. It is a well-meaning gardener with pruning shears at the wrong time of year. So here's the rule to burn into your memory. If you have a big mophead or an oak leaf hydrangea, put the shears down. Do not prune it now, in fall and winter or in spring. The only safe time is right after it finishes blooming in early summer, and that window has already closed. Now, there's an exception. The cone-shaped white ones like Limelight and the round white ones like Annabelle bloom on new wood. They make their flowers on fresh spring growth, so those get pruned in late winter instead. Not sure which you have? Round, colorful, ball-shaped blooms or oak-shaped leaves means old wood. Hands off now. White cones or white balls means new wood. Prune those next winter. That one glance tells you everything. One more honest wrinkle worth knowing. There's a newer group of big leaf hydrangeas bred to rebloom, the endless summer type. And these bloom on both old wood and new wood, which makes them far more forgiving if you prune at the wrong time or lose buds to a hard winter. If you have one of those, you've got more room for error. But the rule of thumb still holds. Even with a reblooming variety, don't hack it back hard in the heat of summer. Leave the stems and let it do its thing. Number 5, deadhead your spent blooms, but do it shallow and know exactly where to cut. Removing the faded, browning flower heads keeps the plant looking clean and is perfectly fine to do in July. But most people do it wrong and pay for it. Snip only just below the old flower head, right above the first set of healthy leaves. Take the dead bloom and nothing more. What you must never do is reach down and cut a long piece off the woody stem, because on a mophead or oak leaf, that is exactly where next year's buds are forming right now. Deadhead shallow. Take the spent flower, leave the stem, and you keep next summer's show intact. Number 6, stop fertilizing and be honest about whether you should be feeding at all. Here's the fertilizer truth most content won't say directly. An established hydrangea in decent soil does not need a big push of nitrogen, and giving it one in the heat of summer actively works against you. A heavy nitrogen feed produces a flush of lush green leaves and fewer, smaller blooms, because you've told the plant to grow foliage instead of flowers. On top of that, feeding late in the season forces out tender new growth at exactly the moment the plant should be starting to prepare for dormancy, and that soft growth won't harden off before cold weather, making it the first thing damaged by an early frost. In the colder zones especially, where frost can arrive in September, late feeding is a direct path to cold damage on growth that never should have been produced. So by the end of July, stop. Your hydrangea doesn't need a big meal this month. It needs water, mulch, and to be left alone to do its quiet work. There is one narrow exception. A hydrangea growing in a container in the same potting mix all season runs out of nutrients faster than one in the ground, because that limited soil volume gets depleted and flushed out with every watering. For a potted hydrangea, one light, balanced feeding in early July is fine, and then nothing more for the rest of the season. And if you want to feed your in-ground hydrangeas the right way long term, skip the chemical nitrogen entirely and top dress with a little compost in spring. It feeds them slowly, steadily, and at a pace that builds blooms instead of just leaves. Number 7, learn to tell the July problems apart, because treating the wrong one wastes your time and can make things worse. Afternoon wilting, where the leaves droop in the sun but perk back up in the cool of evening, is usually normal heat protection, not thirst. Check the soil before you drown it, because constantly soggy roots rot. Genuine drought stress shows as browning, crispy leaf edges that don't recover overnight, and the fix is a deep morning soak plus mulch. Sun scorch is bleached, papery patches on the most sun-exposed parts of the leaf, with no spots or fuzz. The fix is shade. An actual disease, like leaf spot or powdery mildew, shows as distinct spots, blotches, or white powdery film on the leaves, and it thrives on wet foliage and poor airflow, which is exactly why we water at the roots in the morning and keep the plant from being crowded. Leaf spot shows up as round purple or brown spots that spread across the leaf, usually starting on the lower leaves. Powdery mildew is that grayish-white dusty coating, most common when days are warm and nights are cool and humid. Neither is usually fatal, and both are managed the same way. Remove the worst affected leaves, water only at the base, and open up the air around the plant. Don't reach for a chemical before you've fixed the conditions that let it start. Put the pruning shears away if you have a mophead or oak leaf. Next year's flowers are forming on those stems right now. Deadhead shallow, taking only the spent blooms. Stop all fertilizing by the end of July. And learn to tell wilt, scorch, drought, and disease apart before you treat anything. July is not the month to push your hydrangeas. It is the month to protect them, because the plants that come back strongest next spring are the ones that were protected through the stress of this summer, not forced through it. Subscribe right now if you haven't already, hit the bell, and drop 2 things in the comments before you go. What state or zone are you gardening in? And what does your hydrangea look like right now in July? Blooming beautifully, wilting, browning, or refusing to flower at all? I read every single comment, and your answers shape the next video directly. Next time, I'm covering the one thing your roses need in July that most people skip completely. The simple step that decides whether they bloom again before fall or quit on you for the season.